The Jeep Wrangler you see parked at the trailhead every weekend. The Toyota 4Runner that has been in continuous production since 1984. The Ford Bronco that came back from the dead after a 25-year absence, because the demand never went away. These are not just vehicles, they are the last mechanical connection between modern American drivers and the analog off-road philosophy that built this country. And right now, in 2025, every single one of them is under an existential threat that has nothing to do with sales numbers or consumer demand. The threat is coming from Washington, and it is moving faster than the off-road community realizes. Today, we are laying out exactly why the golden era of body-on-frame off-road vehicles is entering its final chapter, which specific regulations are driving it, what the timeline actually looks like, and which trucks you need to secure right now before the market figures out what is happening. To understand the threat you have, to understand what makes a real off-road truck mechanically incompatible with the regulatory direction the federal government has chosen. A genuine off-road capable body-on-frame truck requires a high ground clearance, a solid front axle or robust independent setup, low-range transfer case gearing, and a high torque engine that delivers usable power at low RPM for rock crawling and trail work. That combination of requirements produces a vehicle that is fundamentally heavier, less aerodynamic, and less fuel efficient than the crossover SUVs that regulatory agencies prefer to count when calculating fleet average emissions. The corporate average fuel economy standard, known as CAFE, requires every automaker selling vehicles in America to meet a fleet-wide average fuel economy target. The targets have been increasing steadily, and the current trajectory under federal emissions planning calls for fleet averages that genuine off-road trucks structurally cannot meet without radical powertrain changes. When an automaker cannot bring a specific model into compliance with fleet average targets, the math becomes simple. Either pay the federal fines, which get passed directly to consumers through higher prices on every vehicle the company sells, or discontinue the non-compliant model and replace it with something that does meet the standard. Ford already demonstrated exactly how this plays out. The original Bronco was discontinued after the 1996 model year. The official reason given was changing consumer preferences. The actual reason, documented in internal communications that surfaced years later, was fleet emissions compliance math. A body-on-frame V8 SUV with low-range gearing was an anchor on Ford's CAFE numbers at a time when the targets were tightening. It took 25 years and a completely different regulatory environment before Ford decided the consumer demand was strong enough to justify bringing it back. That 25-year gap represents an entire generation of off-road buyers who grew up without access to the vehicle their parents drove. The same math is now being applied to every surviving body-on-frame off-road platform simultaneously. The Jeep Wrangler is currently Stellantis' single most profitable vehicle per unit, but it is also one of the worst performers in their fleet for emissions compliance. Stellantis has responded by introducing hybrid and plug-in hybrid Wrangler variants, the 4xe models, specifically to use the electric range figures in their CAFE calculations to offset the V6 powered standard models. This works right now. It will not work indefinitely as the targets increase. At some point, the hybrid offset math stops being enough, and Stellantis faces the same choice Ford faced in 1996. Toyota has kept the 4Runner in production longer than almost anyone expected. The current fifth-generation platform is over 15 years old. Toyota has resisted the pressure to replace it with a unibody crossover because the 4Runner has one of the most loyal owner communities in the automotive world, and the profit margins on a 15-year-old amortized platform are exceptional. But Toyota has publicly stated that a next-generation 4Runner will move toward electrification. What that means for the solid rear axle, the low-range transfer case, and the body-on-frame construction that made the 4Runner worth owning is not yet clear. And what is not clear in the automotive industry almost always resolves in the direction that regulatory compliance requires. The off-road aftermarket is beginning to see the early signs of what is coming. Lift kit manufacturers, locker suppliers, and skid plate fabricators who built their businesses around specific platforms are watching development pipelines carefully. When a platform gets discontinued or fundamentally restructured, the aftermarket support collapses within 3 to 5 years. The institutional knowledge of how to modify and repair a specific vehicle dissipates as mechanics move on to newer platforms. Parts availability contracts. The vehicles that were the backbone of the off-road community become orphans. This is exactly what happened to the first-generation Ford Bronco, the International Scout, and the original Dodge Ram Charger. All of them had passionate owner communities. All of them had strong aftermarket support at the time of discontinuation. All of them are now expensive collector vehicles that require specialized knowledge and premium parts pricing to maintain. The window between daily driver and collector-only vehicle closed within a decade of production ending. So what do you do right now? The answer is the same answer it always is when a supply is about to permanently contract. You acquire before the contraction happens. A clean 2018 to 2022 Jeep Wrangler JL with the 3.6-liter Pentastar and a manual transmission is currently available in the $28,000 to $38,000 range on private sale markets. A clean 5th generation 4Runner TRD Pro from the same era sits between $42,000 and $55,000. These are not cheap vehicles, but they are the last generation of these platforms, built before electrification mandates fundamentally alter what these vehicles are. In 10 years, the people who secured clean examples of these specific trucks at today's prices will look like the people who bought pre-OBD2 F-150s in 2015 for $3,000. The off-road community built its culture around mechanical freedom. The freedom to go where roads do not exist. The freedom to fix your own vehicle on a trail with hand tools. The freedom to modify your truck to suit the terrain instead of the algorithm. That culture is not compatible with the regulatory direction the federal government has chosen, and the vehicles that embody it are not going to be in production forever. The window is open right now. It will not be open indefinitely.